And now back to more art that rocks. Now, generally, when people think of guitar heroes, they think of somebody like Eddie Van Halen. You know, the guys that shred. But today on this segment of Art That Rocks, I'll be talking about Metallica and painting one of my favorite guitar players of all time, James Hetfield. There are certain events that happen to us in the course of our lives that we never forget. Your first date, your first kiss, your first time. I think you know what I mean? Yeah, well, anyway, one of the things I'll never forget was the first time I ever heard Metallica. It was back in the 80s, and one of my friends gave me a cassette tape of Ride the Lightning. I'd never heard him before, so I took the tape and I stuck it into my Sony Walkman and slapped the headphones on. The next thing I knew, my ears were being assaulted by the heaviest thing they'd ever encountered. The thing that you gotta know is back in the 80s, up until that point, I'd never heard anything that intense. It was kind of a shock to my system. And to be honest, at first, I didn't even know what to think about it. I'd been listening to bands like Rush and Van Halen, and I thought I was pretty metal because I liked the Scorpions and Judas Priest. But this was a whole new kind of heavy. It was extreme, it was complex, and it wasn't just easily digested. It was something I had to listen to several times before I started to get it. And when I heard Master of Puppets, I loved it, and I became a full-on fan. I think the thing I loved the most about those early Metallica albums were the guitar riffs. They weren't just heavy and they weren't just brutal, they were melodic and, dare I say, catchy. Yeah, you could bang your head to them, but they'd also get stuck in your head like the hook to a memorable chorus. I'd never seen Metallica live back then, so I went out and bought their DVD Cliff 'Em All live bootleg. Well, honestly, it wasn't the DVD, it was a VHS tape. And when I stuck it in my VCR, I was kind of blown away by how cool Hetfield was. He was just the ultimate badass musician. He had the long hair and he wore those black wristbands. And there was something about that Gibson Explorer guitar that he played that was just so cool that I ended up having a bass made for myself that had that same Explorer body on it. I finally saw him live and in person on the Monsters of Rock tour. And it seems hard to believe now, but they were one of the openers and they played in the afternoon before Dokken and Van Halen and the Scorpions. But for me, they were by far the best, most exciting band there that day. I saw them again on the And Justice for All tour, and once again, it was an amazing show. Now after that, we all know what happened. They put out the Black album, and they got really huge, and then they put out stuff like Saint Anger, and Load, and Reload. And I'll admit that I never really liked those albums as much as I did those first 3 or 4. But I understand. Bands have to grow and change and develop, and they can't just keep doing the same thing their entire career. Unless you're AC/DC, then it's fine. For everyone else, it's good to experiment. However, for me, I'll always love that early Metallica stuff the best, and I'll always have those memories. And that's why I did this painting of a young James Hetfield. He's still badass, he just looks a little bit more like your dad or your uncle or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that. All I'm saying is that back in the 80s, no one wrote better riffs or was cooler than James Hetfield. And that's why he's one of my favorite guitar players of all time. If you want to buy a painting or you want to commission me to do one for you, then go to my website, montycolvinart.com, and rock on.
Heavy Metal Television, the world's first 24-hour internet TV station, forever free.